Hey everybody, and welcome to Dominion Cards, the video series where we take a strategic, in-depth look at various cards from the board game Dominion. Today we're looking at Courtyard. This is a 2-cost action card from Intrigue, and it says +3 cards. Put a card from your hand onto your deck. So when you first look at this, you might think to yourself, oh, +3 cards, this is a lot like Smithy, but a lot cheaper. No, it is not like Smithy at all. This card is a little bit misleading. Because you have to put a card from your hand back onto your deck, you're actually only drawing 2 cards overall. Now bear in mind that the card that you put back from your hand does not have to be one of the 3 cards you just drew. It could be any card that you have. But overall, it's like getting +3 and then a -1, so +2. This means that Courtyard is a lot more like a Moat variant than it is a Smithy variant. And that's why it costs 2. Because for the same reason that Moat costs 2, because it only draws 2 cards terminally, and that's usually pretty bad. Now, I say it's pretty bad. We all know that Moat is a pretty terrible card in terms of draw, and that is because +2 cards is a lot worse than +3 cards. Now, it's not just worse because you're drawing less cards. Terminal +2 cards is also a lot worse because you need more villages, you need to buy more of them in order to draw as many cards. But they also have reliability problems. So one of the big problems with cards like Moat is that because it's terminal draw, you have to keep drawing villages in order to keep playing it. And when you only draw 2 cards instead of 3, you have less card search space. You draw less into your deck, so your odds of finding another village potentially go down a little bit. And so if you play a Moat and the 2 cards you draw just happen to be 2 more Moats, then that could completely ruin your turn. If you didn't have any spare actions, well, you can't go anymore, right? So that's part of why it's just so much worse than +3 cards. But Courtyard has a sneaky trick up its sleeve, and that is that you actually still get to look at that 3rd card like you would with a Smithy, and then you can put something else back. So in that situation where I said, you play a Moat and you draw 2 Moats, well, if there was a village as your 3rd card, you actually get an opportunity to keep that card with your Courtyard, because you do draw it first, and then you could put one of those 2 Moats back. So Courtyard is a lot more reliable in sort of the way that Smithy is, but it's only the draw of Moat. But it's a lot better than, well, I said it's a lot better than Moat. It is a better draw card than Moat because it loses those reliability problems. Now, Courtyard is best known for the fact that it tends to be really, really good in big money decks. So big money is a very basic strategy where you just buy silvers and golds and 1 other card, and then you buy your provinces and your duchies. So it's almost always available. And as you will know if you've watched say the Smithy video, draw cards, particularly terminal draw, tends to be the best type of cards to go with these big money strategies. And Courtyard might surprise you if you don't already know this, but it's actually very, very strong in terms of big money decks. It's actually way better than Smithy. In fact, if you look at a lot of the cards that really go well in a big money strategy, Courtyard is really high up the list, which for a 2-cost card might be very, very surprising. So why is this? Well, this is because big money is a very, very random strategy, right? Bear in mind when we're talking about this, big money is usually not very good, but it will beat new, weak players. Right? And it's very random because what you really want in big money is to hit 6 and 8 as often as you can. Gold is way better than something like silver, and the problem is that if you hit 4 or 5, you're stuck with a silver, and if you get 6 or 7, you get a gold. But 7 is still a bit of a waste of money. Really, you want to hit 6 and 8 as often as you reasonably can. And when you play with something like Smithy, you draw a whole load of cards and you're probably going to have this really, really good turn, but you might just shoot way past 8 and you might get 10 money in your hand. And that's a little bit of a waste because 2 of those coins weren't contributing towards buying something nice on that particular shuffle through your deck. And what you get to do with Courtyard is, if you drew like 10 money with your 6-card hand that you end up with, you can take a silver that you might have and put that back on top, and now you get to spend your money much more efficiently. You do hit exactly 8, and then that silver contributes towards your next turn. So this way, what you get to do is you get to avoid the nasty price points like 7 and 10 and all that, and you're less likely to hit the low price points on the following turn where you probably don't have a draw card. So Courtyard just very, very efficient at spending your treasures, which is what you're doing in sort of a big money deck. It also has this other benefit in these sorts of decks, in that you can't draw it dead. So when you play like Smithy Big Money, one big risk that you have is that when you draw with Smithy, you end up with another Smithy in your hand, or you start with like 2 Smithies in your starting hand. Problem is you only get to play one of them, and one of those Smithies essentially gets completely wasted. It's why, you know, when you go for big money strategy, like the more you don't add that many terminal draw cards. Like with Smithy Big Money, you just want 2 Smithies in your deck, possibly a third later on, but you don't really want that many, and that's because drawing them dead is really bad. Well, Courtyard is nice in that if you do draw it with another Courtyard, you can just put that Courtyard back on top, and now you get to play with the other Courtyard on your next turn. Now, it's not just limited to Courtyards. This is where you're most likely going to see a Courtyard being used for collision protection, because otherwise you'd be playing an engine that has a lot of villages, especially if you're playing with a draw card that's only like Moat-like in how it draws. You are going to be thinned down, and so you shouldn't really be drawing anything dead anyway. But you can use this for other cards sometimes when you're trying to set up particular combos and they don't happen. So you think certain cards like Remodel want to be paired up with very particular other cards, and sometimes you don't get to do that. So in this case, if you drew the Remodel and you didn't draw it with like one of your estates, you could top deck the Remodel, and then next turn, you know, hopefully you'll draw it with an estate. But certain cards where you would find this are ones where the combos are particularly strong. So think about treasure maps from Seaside. If you get 2 of them in a hand and you play it, you get 4 golds on top of your deck. And Tournament, when you play with that, it's usually a race to match it up with a province as soon as you can. So Courtyard can sometimes be useful just to try and get these big hands and try and match up. I mean, you could, of course, play a Courtyard and like draw your tournament and your province, and then you're kind of in a bit of trouble. But you know, sometimes you might find that it helps you just set these up when you want to get these things off really quickly. Like particularly if you're going for something like Treasure Map, you're probably going for a money strategy anyway, possibly. And the only way it's ever going to be reasonable to actually pair them up will be with something like Courtyard. Now, there are more benefits to just top decking cards. So if you play with a Courtyard as your last card, you do get to essentially pick a card from your hand and put it on top, ready for next turn. So that could be really useful if you have something like Outpost, where you know your next turn's going to struggle without some help. So Courtyard can be really nice. Even if you're drawing with some other card, like say Smithy, you could get 1 Courtyard and just use it to set up your next turn. There are cards that we've talked about before that really like top decking, like Vassal. I did go into these in the Artisan video, and I just recommend that you watch that if you want to know a little bit more about top decking and cards that benefit from it, because I don't want to repeat myself too much in all these videos. Sometimes, and I admit this is a little bit rare with this card, maybe you want a card to go out of your hand temporarily mid-turn for some reason. So the card Menagerie will draw you 3 cards if every card in your hand is different. And so with Courtyard, you get an opportunity after drawing to put 1 card back. So you might be able to pick a duplicate and then set off a Menagerie, right? Or something like Poorhouse you want to play in the middle of your turn and you put a treasure out of your hand. Again, you don't necessarily see this very often, but bear in mind it is a thing that you can do. Now, just to note that unlike Artisan, because Courtyard draws every time you play it, you don't get to set up top deck chains, so you can't top deck 2 cards and then guarantee a wish with Wishing Well, for example, right? You're only, unless you had Courtyard and an Artisan, right? But Courtyard on its own isn't able to do stuff like that. So this is a pretty short video because there's not that much to say about Courtyard, so just for a quick summary, best known for being really strong in treasure-based decks. It's pretty weak draw. It's actually only +2 instead of +3, but it is very cheap, and it can help you set up your next turn if you just have one of them, right, even with other draw. If it is your only draw, you get lots of opportunities to interact with cards that like top decking, so stuff like Vassal. So it's particularly good with those sorts of combos. You just, as you draw through your deck, like all these opportunities to use them come up in a way that doesn't happen necessarily with other top deckers. It's just because if you're drawing with Courtyard as your main draw, you need a lot of them to actually get anywhere. So that's why Courtyard tends to be particularly nice with cards like Vassal. That's it for Courtyard. So what we're going to do is we are going to head over to the online client and we're going to generate some random kingdoms with Courtyard, and we're going to assess how well it does. Here we go. So what do we have here? First thing, do we have any bridges? Not bridges, villages. Sorry, I saw bridge and it came into my mind. There is throne room, and you've got that with minion. So it looks like if you really want to be doing anything at all here, you're probably going to be needing to use minion as your draw. You certainly can't really use Courtyard very well. Only trashing is trading post, which is a big shame. On the other hand, swindling silvers is not actually very good for your opponent here. What are they going to turn into? Other silvers or more swindlers? I mean, whatever. Bridge with throne room is pretty nice, and using minion with throne room is nice to get some extra action. So I think what this deck is that we want a trading post. We want to thin as much as we can, and it's not going to be super great thinning because we're going to have all these silvers. And even though minion doesn't like silvers, I think we're going to go Courtyard. Throne room minion, and we're going to try and basically play a whole load of bridges. And it's not brilliant. Is something like Courtyard and Harem Big Money going to be better? Well, I think if you do that, your Courtyards are at risk of being turned into estates, and the minion player should definitely pick up a bunch of swindlers. In fact, they might be better off just playing a ton of swindlers and just causing absolute havoc for you. Like, you want to buy duchies, they'll all get turned into trading posts. So I think the minion player has such good ability to draw through his deck and cause you absolute pain that you don't really want to go big money. Like, the swindler player is safe to turn many of your silvers into swindlers, and while that's, if other players going big money with Courtyards, they definitely don't want a load of swindlers in their deck. Even though swindlers are nasty for you, they're going to be so much worse for your opponent. So I think you have to do minion, bridge, throne room, trading post. And I don't think you're ever actually going to be playing with a Courtyard here. I don't see any way that gardens could be good. Is Courtier good for the minion deck? Probably not. I think I just rather want to be playing bridges instead. So yeah, it's just throne room, minion, bridge, trading post, I think. So I think Courtyard, it doesn't work in this kingdom, and that's just because the particular type of draw that is available is stronger than Courtyard. So here, straight away I've spotted Courtyard and Vassal. That is a nice combo, and there is a village to go with it, and we've got good trashing with Sentry. So we could get quite a lot of money with Courtyard and Vassal. Do we have anything with plus buy? Yes, well, we've got Bridge. Okay. Is Baron good? I don't think Baron's very good because we've got Bridge. I don't think mine is going to be terrible. Duke is not really going to win against a Bridge mega turn. While there is only one village pile, and you've got to draw with Courtyard. Well, we really want to get thin as much as we can. So we really want to prioritise Sentry, and we want to go for playing as many bridges as we can. What we can do is we can use Courtyard with some draw to set up some vassals, and the vassal will help to like just draw another village and just give more money. And we won't play so many bridges, I think, that we can get province down to nothing, but we can play a bunch of them and combine it with vassal money, which are going to be very easy to get as well, with the cost reduction from bridges, that we can just generate a bucket load of money, and the provinces will probably go down to something like 4, but you can get a lot of them very quickly still with that. It's just going to take a few more turns. So I think Courtyard is the only draw here, and that means that it's necessary because we have bridge. But the number of villages that you get is going to be absolutely crucial here as well. I think the villages are a real limiting factor because the draw is terminal and it's not very good, but it's still worth going for the bridges. If you don't get many villages, I'm not really sure what else you would do. I mean, would you gain golds with Courtier and then try and remodel them? I don't think so, because Courtier, this is the rare board where there is nothing with 2 or more types, so it's like a terminal gold gainer in that case, which is not great. It's still bad. Any strategy you want to pick, you're going to need a load of villages. But yeah, so Courtyard's good here because it's the only draw, and bridge means that drawing is really good. So what do we have here? There is no trashing at all. We have ironworks. What can we do with ironworks? We can gain villages, we can gain courtyards. That's not so great with no trashing. It's not super good draw, but we can gain a bunch of them. There's harbingers, but right. I see there is minion for better draw, but with no trashing, what are you going to do with the minion? Like, what else can you play? You would only be able to play poachers and courtiers, and you could make that work. You could probably even use ironworks to gain a bunch of secret passages to try and make the minion work a little bit better. In fact, is minion good enough to just prevent Courtyard Big Money from destroying everything? Because this is a pretty weak board. Poachers are all right, actually, with ironworks. I think I'm leaning more towards minion. Ironwork a bunch of poachers, because once they start discarding, it's not so bad because it's minion. And you're going to discard the cards anyway. And I think you just try to get as many minions as you can. I don't know if Courtyard Big Money is better. I think Courtyard Big Money is actually hurt by minion. And so one thing that's important here is that minions discarding means that Courtyard's ability to smooth out money draws by putting like a gold back on top or a silver gets completely eliminated by minion when the minion just discards all of those anyway. Although I guess it does mean that the Courtyard can like put a province back, but then you're just playing with Moat, right? You put back estates and provinces. It's like Moat Big Money in a way. So, yeah, which is not very good, actually. So I think ironworks to get poachers and secret passages and use minion and play minions and possibly courtiers as well for money, and it will give you buys. And I think you eventually climb up to province. So we ignore bandit. In fact, we kind of never want to buy any treasures, and we will open with ironworks. Maybe we get 1 silver. I don't know. I don't like it. I think we want as few as possible. I was going to say maybe we open with poacher to hit 5, but honestly, I think I prefer ironworks. And we just start gaining a bunch of poachers, I suppose. Yeah, we're happy if we open 5-2. I buy a minion and probably nothing. Maybe I can just get 1 courtyard. I mean, whatever. I'll eventually pick up a village, but no, I guess we open ironworks. Silver, it just doesn't feel very good. But yeah, I think Courtyard, we probably ignore it on this board because there's minion and it's just better draw and it's the better strategy. Even though it's a pretty weak, as far as minion boards go, it's not spectacular. So more bridges, we're seeing bridge a lot here. So what's our draw? We have Courtyard and Council Room. We have no trashing at all. We've got villages and bridges, so this is tempting. And we've got artisan, and we can pick up council rooms instead. That's actually way better draw than courtyard. And given we have only one village pile and we've got bridge, maybe we want to do that instead. We can gain them with artisans. What's interesting with bridge, actually, if you play 3 of them, your artisan can just start gaining provinces directly. So that's really nice, actually. On a 4-3, I think I want to hit artisan, so I want to get a mill. There's no trashing, so do I really want a silver? Would you really go mill and pawn and just try and play pawn with card and coin and hope you don't draw the mill dead? Like, is that actually enough to replace the silver? But you don't care for bandits. I guess we go mill and we're going to buy a council room and eventually we'll hit 6 that way, right? But I think I do take a mill for the money initially. Or maybe we just open straight up with bridge. Maybe we just go bridge and village, because village is really important. And we just start like that, right? Because bridge is kind of like a silver as well. And eventually we're going to hit artisan. I don't think it's super critical. I would rather have council room instead of courtyard, even though it helps our opponent. You know what? Like, just, we can't spend the villages on the courtyards. Like, it's too much village support. We really want to be playing it on the bridges instead, and we're also going to want to be playing one artisan. So yeah, maybe we open bridge pawn instead. Maybe that's slightly better, and we might be more likely to hit artisan. Then we'd always play pawn for action coin, I suppose, if we draw it with bridge, so it's not the end of the world. But we probably won't hit artisan in that case. Yeah, okay, I guess so. So I might pick up a courtyard on this board, but I would rather play with something that sets off the bridge because it's just so powerful here. And we can generate money. Oh, maybe we get 1 silver and we try to play a load of merchants as well for money, because we can buy a whole ton of them with bridge. So I guess I open bridge and silver after all, and I'm going to draw enough strongly that actually I can play the merchants. There you go, I've decided now. Yep, so that will kick off when we get an artisan, the council rooms. And maybe our opponent's council rooms will make that a very fast game. I think it's one where we just help each other out because it's so strong, the engine payload. Right, last kingdom. We have Sentry to trash and also Masquerade. We have Ironworks, and what can we gain with Ironworks? Conspirators. We can set them off with sentries and harbingers and pawns, I suppose. There's no village, so courtyard is either we go all in on courtyard for money or we don't bother at all. How good is going Ironworks with Conspirator and trashing down? We would have to gain a bunch of harbingers and sentries to kick off Conspirator, but after that it's pretty consistent. The question is, can we do it quickly enough? I would like to open Ironworks and Masquerade, I think. And I just hope I don't draw the Ironworks dead, but maybe I do. And so I start trashing down. Eventually I will get a sentry. I will pick up some conspirators. And I'll pick up more sentries. And then soon I can just gain pawns and harbingers if I have to. And I think we can generate enough money. We may even be able to go up to double province because we've got to buy with our pawn. Bear in mind that we will be playing a deck with absolutely no draw in it. There is no non-terminal, like, proper draw. Anytime we want to play a draw card like Courtyard, Moat or Masquerade, that does end our turn, and we do have an Ironworks in there. And we will eventually go down to Ironworks, Conspirator, possibly a Masquerade. So we'll have these 2 stop cards in there. And the pawn as well, so we're never going to draw super well, so maybe we will never go to double province, but I think we can get our deck good and consistent enough that actually going for the engine is better. But, you know, I can see Courtyard big money actually being okay here, even though there's the threat of Masquerade, where will you just get a bunch of your estates turned into, or a bunch of your coppers turned into estates by Masquerade? I think you will early on, but then eventually they're going to get turned back into coppers as the other player trashes their estate. I think I'd rather go for the engine here. I think the engine's going to win. I think the Conspirator engine is going to be better, and therefore I won't be buying Courtyard. But I can see Courtyard big money. Possibly, if you get a little bit lucky, maybe, then it could be competitive. I'm a little bit worried about the engine. They're going to have some dud turns. It's not super great. You really need a pretty high density experience. Well, I suppose actually, thinking about it, if you do dud, having the Harbingers will help you get back the Conspirators and other cards to help like kick off your Conspirators. So actually, I think it's a little bit better. Okay, I've decided. A rare sort of board because the draw is weak, where Harbinger actually can be pretty good. And for that reason, you're going to be getting them anyway because you want them to kick off your Conspirators. So actually, yeah, I'm going to say the Conspirator engine is good, so we're not going to be playing with Courtyard. If we're going to be playing any terminal, it's going to be Masquerade. So, there we go. So as you can see, Courtyard, it's terminal, so you need villages, right? It's terminal draw. If there's an engine, you want that. If there's better draw, then you're probably not going to play with Courtyard. We had one board where it had interactions with like Vassal, and so it was pretty good. But otherwise, it's better than Moat, but it's still a Moat-like, so you don't necessarily... If something's better, you're not really going to get Courtyard. So there we are, that's it for Courtyard. I hope this was useful for you. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.